Picture this. You're in a room full of people, talking, laughing, negotiating, reacting. Everyone is signaling who they are, what they want, where they stand. Except you. You say less than expected. You react slower than expected. You don't confirm assumptions. You don't deny them either. And something strange happens. People begin filling in the gaps. They guess what you're thinking. They imagine your judgment. They project intentions onto your silence. They assign meaning where none was given. Without realizing it, they start revealing themselves to you. This is not mysticism. This is not charisma. This is not confidence in the motivational sense. This is psychological leverage. Carl Jung called it projection, the unconscious act of placing one's own fears, desires, and insecurities onto someone who does not reveal themselves. When a person is emotionally readable, others respond to what they see. But when a person becomes unreadable, others respond to what they are. And that is where power quietly shifts. The unreadable individual does not dominate the room. They do something far more dangerous. They become a psychological mirror. In front of them, people grow nervous. They talk more. They justify themselves. They over-explain. They reveal motives they never intended to expose. Not because the unreadable person is threatening, but because the human mind cannot tolerate uncertainty. Jung understood this. Machiavelli weaponized it. Schopenhauer respected it. The person who cannot be read cannot be controlled. In this video, you're going to learn why unreadability triggers projection in others, how silence and emotional neutrality force people to expose their inner world, why being difficult to interpret gives you dominance without aggression, and how to deliberately cultivate psychological opacity in a world addicted to visibility. This is not about playing games. This is not about manipulation. This is about withdrawing access to your inner world and watching others hand you theirs. Welcome to Psycrypt. Let's decode the most underestimated form of control, being unreadable. Human beings do not simply interact with each other. They interpret each other. Every conversation, every glance, every pause is unconsciously scanned for meaning. Tone becomes intention. Silence becomes judgment. Expression becomes identity. This constant interpretation is not optional. It is how the human psyche orients itself in social space. But here is the critical flaw in that system. Interpretation requires data. When data is missing, the mind does not wait patiently. It fills the gap. This is where unreadability becomes power. Carl Jung observed that when individuals cannot consciously understand something outside themselves, they project unconscious material onto it instead. This is projection, the mind's desperate attempt to restore certainty. In other words, when someone cannot read you, they begin reading themselves into you. Most people are highly readable. They reveal how they feel instantly. They telegraph approval or disapproval. They confirm assumptions through facial cues, emotional reactions, verbal reassurance. This makes interaction comfortable, but it also makes them predictable. The unreadable person breaks this comfort. They do not confirm expectations. They do not rush to clarify misunderstandings. They do not correct assumptions placed upon them. And because of that, something unsettling occurs. People begin assigning motives. He must think he's superior. She's judging me. He knows something I don't. She's cold, or dangerous, or brilliant. Notice something important here. The unreadable person did not do anything. All of this meaning was generated internally by the observer. This is Jung's law of projection in action. The unreadable individual becomes a psychological canvas onto which others paint their own inner conflicts, insecurities, and desires. The anxious project judgment, the arrogant project rivalry, the insecure project superiority, the manipulative project calculation. The quieter you are, the louder their inner world becomes. And this is why unreadability is not neutral. It is destabilizing. Human beings rely on feedback to regulate themselves emotionally. They need reassurance. They need confirmation. They need reactions to feel oriented and safe. When you deny them that feedback, not aggressively, not coldly, but calmly, you remove the psychological handrails they depend on. This creates tension, and tension creates exposure. People talk more around unreadable individuals. They justify themselves. They explain things you never asked about. They attempt to control the narrative. Why? Because silence feels like being watched. Machiavelli understood this dynamic instinctively. He advised rulers to reveal as little as possible, not to deceive constantly, but to avoid being legible. The moment someone can read you, they can predict you, and the moment you are predictable, you are manageable. Unreadability disrupts that chain. You cannot be steered if your intentions are unclear. You cannot be pressured if your reactions are unknown. You cannot be manipulated if your emotional center is inaccessible. This is why unreadable people are often labeled as intimidating, distant, or calculating, not because they are those things, but because others are forced to confront their own assumptions in the absence of information. The unreadable person does not impose power. They create a vacuum, and human psychology cannot tolerate a vacuum for long. In the next act, we'll go deeper into why unreadability feels threatening and how the human mind reacts when it loses its ability to predict, categorize, and control. To understand why unreadability holds so much power, you have to look at what it removes from an interaction. Most people believe social control comes from authority, charisma, or dominance. But psychologically, control comes from something far simpler: predictability. Humans feel safe when they can anticipate outcomes. They want to know how you'll react, what you think of them, where they stand. This allows them to regulate their behavior, protect their ego, and maintain emotional equilibrium. Unreadability destroys that safety. When you don't react the way you're expected to, when your face doesn't give away approval or disapproval, when your silence refuses to clarify intention, the other person loses their footing, and when people lose emotional footing, they reveal themselves. Jung explained that what we cannot consciously understand, we attempt to control unconsciously. When control fails, fear enters. This is why unreadable individuals often make others anxious without doing anything overt. Their presence introduces uncertainty, and uncertainty is psychologically intolerable. Think about it. If someone smiles, you know where you stand. If someone argues, you know what they want. If someone flatters, you know their angle. But if someone remains calm, neutral, and quiet, the mind spirals. Do they approve? Are they judging me? Do they see through me? Am I missing something? Machiavelli would recognize this instantly. He warned that people seek leverage wherever they sense ambiguity. When they cannot read your intentions, they cannot decide how to position themselves relative to you. And when positioning fails, anxiety rises. Unreadability removes the emotional handles others use to steer interactions. No reassurance to cling to, no anger to exploit, no eagerness to manipulate, no insecurity to press on. And this creates a subtle inversion of power. The more someone tries to read you, the more they reveal about themselves. The anxious reveal anxiety. The dominant reveal insecurity. The manipulative reveal strategy. Meanwhile, the unreadable person remains intact. Schopenhauer believed that people who lack depth are forced outward, into noise, reaction, stimulation. Silence threatens them because it exposes the poverty of their inner world. When they encounter someone who does not need to perform, explain, or react, they feel judged, even when no judgment exists. This is projection at its most naked. They are not responding to you. They are responding to the discomfort your unreadability awakens in them. Kafka hinted at this dynamic in a darker way. He observed that systems and individuals alike become hostile toward those who cannot be categorized. If you cannot be read, you cannot be filed away, controlled, or neutralized. You exist outside the script. Unreadability is not aggression, it is refusal. Refusal to reassure, refusal to perform, refusal to make yourself digestible, and refusal unsettles those who rely on predictability to maintain control. By the end of this process, people begin adjusting to you. They hesitate, they soften, they test less, they reveal more, not because you demanded it, but because unreadability quietly shifted the psychological balance of power. In the next act, we'll examine how this shift reshapes status, influence, and social gravity, and why the unreadable person ends up controlling rooms without ever trying to. Once unreadability settles into your presence, power begins to move toward you naturally. without confrontation, without persuasion, without effort. This is the stage most people misunderstand, because it looks passive on the surface. But psychologically, it is anything but. Authority does not emerge from noise. It emerges from control. Most people try to assert influence by speaking more, explaining more, reacting faster, or proving themselves. In doing so, they leak information, emotional, strategic, psychological. Every reaction becomes a data point others can use to position themselves. The unreadable person leaks nothing, and in that absence, authority forms. Schopenhauer observed that the more a person depends on external validation, the more power others hold over them. When you no longer need approval, reaction, or recognition, you withdraw from the emotional economy that governs most social interactions. You stop trading emotion for acceptance. This immediately elevates your status. People instinctively respect what does not seek them. Think about how rooms respond to unreadable individuals. They are not interrupted as often. Their silence is not ignored. It is waited on. When they speak, others pause, not because they are louder or more aggressive, but because their words feel deliberate. Machiavelli understood this better than most. He wrote that the most effective leaders do not reveal themselves unnecessarily. They do not clarify intentions prematurely. They allow others to reveal their positions first. This creates a hierarchy of knowledge, and knowledge is leverage. Unreadability gives you that hierarchy. You know more about others than they know about you. You understand motives before revealing your own. You respond when timing favors you, not when pressure demands it. This is authority without force, and it changes how people behave in your presence. Some will attempt to impress you. Some will grow cautious. Some will withdraw. Some will orbit you, waiting for cues that never arrive. All of these reactions signal the same thing. They are orienting themselves around you. Kafka would describe this as quiet dominance, the kind that emerges when someone refuses to participate in the rituals of justification, explanation, and submission. Such a person destabilizes environments not through rebellion, but through non-participation. They do not argue with the system. They make the system unsure how to handle them. Unreadability also protects your inner world. When people cannot read your fears, desires, or emotional pressure points, they cannot exploit them. Manipulation requires access. Influence requires emotional entry. Silence denies both. This creates psychological autonomy. You are no longer reacting to rooms. Rooms react to you. And here is the final transformation. Unreadability stops being a tactic. It becomes an identity. You are no longer trying to control perception. You are no longer managing impressions. You are no longer curating reactions. You exist as you are, and others must adjust. This is why unreadable individuals are often described as intimidating or powerful, even when they say very little. Their authority does not come from assertion. It comes from self-containment. They do not leak emotion. They do not negotiate identity. They do not offer access cheaply. And because of that, their presence reshapes the environment. In the conclusion, we'll consolidate everything we've explored and show how to deliberately cultivate unreadability as a permanent psychological posture, not as a performance, but as a way of moving through the world untouched. By now, you understand something most people never do. Power doesn't come from being seen, it doesn't come from being understood, and it certainly doesn't come from being liked. It comes from self-containment. The unreadable person is not dominant because they impose themselves on the world. They are dominant because the world cannot impose itself on them. They do not leak emotion. They do not explain their inner world. They do not rush to clarify, defend, or perform. And in that restraint, something irreversible happens. Others project, others guess, others adjust, others reveal, while the unreadable remain intact. Jung showed us that people fear what they cannot interpret. Machiavelli showed us that people submit to what they cannot predict. Schopenhauer showed us that depth requires distance. Unreadability is where all three meet. It is not coldness. It is not arrogance. It is not manipulation. It is psychological sovereignty. When you stop trying to be understood, you gain clarity. When you stop explaining yourself, you gain leverage. When you stop reacting, you gain control, and the world feels it, even if it cannot explain why. If this video resonated with you, then you're already walking this path. This is Psycrypt, where silence becomes strategy, where depth becomes dominance, and where the shadows of the human mind are decoded, not denied. Before you go, watch our previous video, Master Detachment, Machiavelli's Code for Making Others Chase You. It completes the psychological foundation behind what you learned today, and in the next video, we'll go even deeper into why withholding access makes you more powerful, and how scarcity of self creates psychological gravity. Until then, stay unreadable, stay sovereign,